Rotzen and Oinig. And Rotzen and Oinig is a gilui of Chayz and Nefesh. In other words, it's a living quality. Just as life, each one of us experiences life on their own. You don't need somebody to explain to you what's life. We experience it on our own because that's what we were given that neshama. Seichel is in the same category but on a lower level. Therefore, if a person has a difficulty in understanding something, the first thing he must do is delve into his own seichel and try to identify what was being said. What is this about? What was the intent behind these words? Without making this effort and putting everything out for the Maggid Shir to explain everything, it's very distracting, it's very exhausting, and it's useless. It's a waste of time. Even 2 times 2 equals to 4, which are as simple as can be. If you don't apply your seichel, it's impossible to explain to you what we're talking about. This is what language is about. It's to bring you the reality of what you're talking about, and then you contemplate into it from a deeper perspective. This is the key to the difficulty with the questions. The difficulty with the question is that we ask questions without having delved into, made an effort to understand what we're talking about. I have a question. Okay, let me get the answer from verbiage, from words that I'm going to hear. It doesn't deserve words. It deserves thought. All right. And here today's shir will be a kind of an illustration of this principle.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that, right?
He sent the link sheet.
All right. So let's start again on page Kuf Nun Dalet in the pamphlet. 7 lines from the bottom. The line begins with what Hoy Lomois. And we're dealing with a very kind of a controversial approach to a question. Controversial because from our vantage point, from moral vantage point, it's not a question to begin with. And the Rebbe says and makes a whole deal of it. Hashem knew, okay, let me put the location. The line begins, we'll go back a bit. The line begins with what Shuhu Ato. This is exactly, can somebody count quickly?
No.
7 lines from
we start.
6 lines from the bottom.
It's above the 7th line. Just
in the middle of that line, Ach, however.
Yeah, I know. What happened?
Yes, Shlomo.
Harei hoyo horotzin ba'idiyah.
Oh, he's sending
Are
the
they?
link. Yeah.
Is it not true that hoyo horotzin ba'idiyah, that the milo, the rotzin, the will for the creation, and the idea and the knowledge of what the creation is, oid koidem shenis have hoyo loves. It exists. It was there way before the worlds were created.
Hello?
Yes, you're sending a new link?
No, I'm there. Okay, I didn't know. I'm
Okay.
there.
Meshach Koshim, as the Pasuk says, Magid Mereish is Acharis. Magis means he relates, he tells. Mereish is Acharis. From the beginning, Acharis, what the end is. Umikedem asher leinasu. Kedem is even more than Reishis. Kedem means prior to the whole process. Asher leinasu, what hadn't yet happened. And he can tell before it began to happen what it is that is due to happen. Therefore, this knowledge, the knowledge of the world, preceded any process in developing the world. The hare, but behold, the world did not come to be bepoil on a factual level. From this knowledge. And here, this is supposed to allude to the tremendous question. But this oddity that the world, and everybody knows the world and it hasn't come to be, this also represents a koyach koyach. Koyach means that he is capable of everything. That's the normal translation of the lit translation of the word. It's koyach. He's able to everything. And the Rebbe elaborates, the kshem, which means that just as that his koyach, which is koyach, which is limitless capability, who it is, shetiya his havas midiyos yisborach. It is that his havas, that the creation should come to be from his knowledge, is actually revealing a koyach koyach. So just as coming to being is revealing a koyach koyach, k'moikein, likewise koyach ha-koyach, that limitless koyach that is capable of everything, who also includes that shehagam sheyodeya kol ha'izavos, that although he knows the entire creation, yet still loitiyem yizeh his havos v'peil. From that knowledge should not come to be his havos v'peil. This is a koyach koyach. Again, this is kind of counterintuitive in our thinking. V'hainu, and the reason for that is that his havos have not come to be bepoil, mipnei, because shehayidiyah that this knowledge is bebchinas havdolah legamri. He's in a state, it's a knowledge of a quality which is havdolah, totally the remote from that which he knows. Al came for this reason. Eino machrach as his havos. This is why this idea does not compel that the Yisrael should come to be, because this idea is in a different realm completely.
Would it be correct to say that unlike in once there is say the Ishtalshalos, you need Koyach HaGvura?
No, one second.
I was going to point out to you.
One second.
Read, but not asking.
One second. You can ask a question, but not interrupt. So let's first understand what the Rebbe is saying before we ask questions. The idea just as the idea, which contains the union from koyach kol yoch, has the capacity, not only the capacity, kind of the compelling element, that from this idea should come to be the mitzvahs of the world. But then we have the question, but that idea preceded the coming world. So therefore, what happened from the time that the idea initiated until the world came to be? That period represents another aspect of Kol Yoch. He knew the world and the world didn't come to be. And the Rebbe says two words. The reason for that, Hainu, that's just 3 lines from the bottom. In the middle, Hainu, Mipnei, and this is because, okay, here's where we all have to put on, so to speak, on neshama in reality. Mipnei, because sheha'idio, that this knowledge, he b'bchinas havdola legam. The idea is b'bchinas havdola is in a havdola manner, totally. He knows the reality, but he is not involved in that reality. Al kain, for this reason, eino machrach as his havos, it does not compel that his havos should come to me. So what does it mean, say idea? And as we explain all the time, idea lamaila is not a projection of possibilities, but knowing the factual presence of things. And yet it's because Havdalah. And the Havdalah is to the extent that it does not, as a result, it does compel that anything should be. What is this all about? So I was thinking, how can we kind of get a handle on this from our vantage point, from our world? The world is supposed to contain a semblance of the Hosei Aristoteles, especially the human being. Where do we have in the human being such an experience, such a concept, something to be, and at the same time it's not? So here's what I came up with. It occurred to me, because it's something which we learn in Halacha a lot. It occurred to me that the very simple means of looking at and understanding this is from the principle of ownership. If you think about what does it mean to own something, and you will see that ownership as a concept does not make any sense from a worldly perspective. Either you're holding your hand or you don't hold in your hand. Ownership in the world means I'm going to stand there with a stick and not let you touch it. But there's a concept of ownership. It's mine, and you're not allowed to touch it. On what basis? What do you mean you're allowed to touch it? In what way does my presence extend to this object when I'm away? And I say, no, I own it. So we always explain that these profound phenomena in the human life are all drawn from the first process when the human being was created. When Hashem created the human being, saying, what is that about? Lahavdil, all the animals are also poribarovi. They're also poribarovi.
Animals.
All the animals, all to multiply. And the Rebbe should give them also a bracha. The Rebbe should create the limits and give them a bracha that they should poribarovi. The difference is by human being, he says, kipshuha. That kipshuha, he was not included in the bracha to the other creatures. What is the kvisha? What does kipshua mean? Kipshua means capture it, cause it to submit to your wishes. Where this kipshua is a phenomenal thing. We don't think about it, but it's a phenomenal thing. It's a divine gift to the human being. It's mine, and I can be thousands of miles away, and it's mine, and you may not touch it without my permission.
Kivshua's ownership.
Kivshua is ownership. No, Kivshua means
Subdue.
conquer it. Koivish, like a melech is koivish. Kivshua, conquer it. When you conquer it, it becomes yours, even if you're absent. In other words, without our conscious awareness, we are constantly experiencing a divine presence in our lives. To the extent that we take it for granted. Hey, wait a second, this is mine. So, it's mine, you can't touch it without my permission. Why not? Are you going to hit me? No, I don't have to hit you. It's forbidden for you to touch it. Who forbids it? The answer is the creator of the world forbids it. In other words, there's a divine presence in the world at all times, particularly in the life of the human being. Thus, the human being is continuously identified, defined by the creator of the world, by his creator. It is not just a little person here in the world. The type of presence the human being represents cannot be a created being. It's a created being, but the created entity has been imbued with the creator's quality. Where do we see this? In ownership. It's a phenomenal thing. There's no limit as to how much what a person can own. Just a muscle of this thing. This is really, as we said, a divine effect. Because the REBBE wanted the human being to have that capacity, and this is why he has it. And it remains a divine presence in human life. There is no way to explain ownership in simple worldly terms. So here we have a situation of a factual, what we call a factual presence, but it's so remote from worldly quality, from worldly presence, that we cannot understand how it works. This is called Bechinas Havdolah. Havdolah means on a superior level. Ownership is not on a worldly level. It occurs in the world, but it occurs in the world because the world is under the jurisdiction of the creator. But actually, the world cannot possibly grasp onto this concept and say, I understand what this is about. This type of idea that is both a presence and knowledge, but it is on a super level, something that does not reach all the way down to the world. It remains, so to speak, in what's called in Choig HaBeire. Choig HaBeire means in the principles of the creator rather than principles of the creator. Because the world has a creator, therefore the world submits to the rules of the creator, but the world on its own cannot possibly identify with these rules. Therefore, this type of knowledge, this type of awareness, cannot affect anything factual, any changes in the world. because it never reaches down to the world.
Never reaches. Ownership is.
Will ownership move these glasses from here to here?
No, but it will.
Excuse me.
No.
When I move the glasses from here to here, am I displaying ownership? Nothing to do with ownership. There's a plain physical.
I'm just saying ownership seems to interface with will. There are deeds, and we create that context. It originated in the unknown, but it is in fact impacting world.
It's impacting world indirectly, from a higher perch,
Yeah.
from a point of respect, not from a point of factuality.
Okay.
From a point of, listen, this is the Mabuson's world. Watch out what you do, but the world itself cannot possibly identify this phenomenon. This is what Rebbe is saying, that there's an idea, and it's a factual idea, but it is b'bchinas havdola legamri. Let's think, what's b'bchinas havdola? It's a knowledge, and a factual knowledge, but it is not involved in the world at all. This knowledge is not understood in the world. Normally, knowledge in the world is, I know what this is, I can hold it, I can pick it up, and I can move the finger from it. That's knowledge. That's worldly knowledge. This does not demonstrate an aspect. The idea of ownership just came to me. It's a good way of demonstrating this concept. We can do things, and it does not at all touch on the principle of ownership. The principle of ownership is not contributing towards the ability to move this object or not to move this object. And yet, it's a factual principle, because this is b'bchinas havdola. This is truly a clear demonstration. This is havdola, the rule, the law of ownership remains in chayk habayit. And this is why this type of idea does not cause directly, immediately, that it is how it should come. Because this idea is not involving knowing the world. It's involving knowing the Creator. Knowing the world from the Creator's perspective, not knowing the world from a Creator perspective. This is why it has no effect.
Is it possible to interrupt now with a question?
Yes, just 1 second. Okay, just to summarize, so before we go to clearly from the words of the Maimar we see that Yidiyah is a direct connect to the object that's known. And yet at the same time, there is an idea that the direct connect does not connect to the object directly, so to speak. I can connect to the object without having effect on the object. It's as if in our terminology of holding, saying, I'm holding this and I'm not holding this. I can be holding this, but it doesn't. But there is a deeper aspect of holding this. Is it mine? That aspect I'm not holding physically. That which is a completely different level. Yes. Okay. Now, Moshe.
My question is this. We know that in Seder Shtalshalos, once there is already Eilumus in Seder Shtalshalos, once there is already that Shva, so therefore you need a whole power of Gevura to counteract the Chesed of the Shva of Chesed.
Hashua, I can hear the word.
Hashpa of Chesed.
Hashua.
So in essence, we see that you need a tzimtzum that holds back the oil. So is that what he's saying here? Benegeh, the idea over there, we don't have any form of tzimtzum whatsoever, but because the idea remains the Havdalah, therefore there's no need of a tzimtzum.
Oh. I don't think this is dealing with that question at all. Tzimtzum. Just imagine. I'm not concerned. What is the function of tzimtzum? Function of tzimtzum is to enable the creation, anything to be at the level of the created, rather than the level of the creator. So that you can say, this is part of the world. You forget about the fact that it was made by the Rebbe. It's a worldly presence. How can that be? The Rebbe created it. That's what the Rebbe said, Mitzamtzim. He made Mitzamtzim oirei. Mitzamtzim, the phenomenon that this is really the Rebbe's world. And remove that from conscious identity. If we be completely oblivious of the miracle of this presence. And we see it entirely from a worldly perspective. That's things. But the fact that it is here is not due to Tzimtzum. Tzimtzum is the fact that we do not see the Koyach Haleki. But the fact that it is here is not due, it's Takia Koyach Haleki. It's Takia miracle. The Tzimtzum is that you don't see it. And the purpose of this tzimtzum is to allow for avodah, to allow to as we're saying, for bechira, as we're going to see, and so forth. But the presence itself is not due to tzimtzum. The Rebbe, in his ideal, he knows every aspect of the world, including these pair of glasses. And this is why these glasses are here. The fact that I can hold them and not feel trepidation in touching them if I'm touching a godly union is because of the tzimtzum. When I go into your home and I see whatever I see, I'm going to have a second thought before I touch it. Because it's in your home. I have the permission to touch it. How is this different than touching this? The answer is that here the Rebbe was mitzamtzem his presence, and therefore we are not aware of this factor. To us, this is a presence in the world, and therefore we can go and without trepidation, without consideration, and move and touch it. Whereas in fact, It is all present because of the Rebbe's idea, because the Rebbe gives it the presence. Or the Rebbe is mitzamtzem over here.
So was the Havdalah act, or the Havdalah doesn't need it? So
Sorry?
the Havdalah, that this idea of Havdalah, this is that. Is there an act of Havdalah, or there's no? I'm saying, how does it work? The idea of Havdalah.
This is why I get emotional of ownership. Maybe Shul's idea is from a truth perspective. Let me explain. To us, these glasses are here. The fact that the glasses are here, the fact that it's in my house, and so forth, and the fact that I own it are totally different levels. The glasses could very well be here, but it's not mine. I don't own it. Everything is broken down in this world on the worldly level. But if we would look at things from a truth perspective, is there such a thing as a pair of glasses that are not owned? No such thing. But we don't regard it. We don't pay attention to that. We don't consider it. As long as nobody comes and hits me in my hand, it's mine. The truth is that if you lose something, and I find it, if I don't look for, if I don't, like Machris, I don't give out, and I'm a geisel, I lost it, it's not yours anymore. The Torah says, no, it is yours. Unless you send the Yush. Yush is already that you give it over to anybody who wants to have it.
So it sounds like the answer to your question is that there is no act of Abdullah.
And the bigger significance of that is what to realize that in fact, even though we are in the world and we are totally unaware of the fact that the world is a creation, everything occurs within the Creator's knowledge. And the reason it occurs and it's unable to be is because the Creator knows it. That's what reality is. We said the other day, and said many times, there is no such thing as presence, existence, but for the Creator. The very phenomenon of existence is a creation from the Creator. Is a presence of the Creator.
What we're saying here is actually about existence, right? He doesn't use the word here anywhere, bria. He uses the word hisavus, right? That the idea is not machrachas, hisavus. This is the language, right?
Yeah. Unidai hisavus versus bria.
Yes. I mean, no, I'm not. The Rebbe is, and you are. You made a distinction between bria and hisavus. I'm just, it's not so.
Well, there is a difference, but it's too broad. If you want to explain it, fine. Otherwise, we have to touch it.
He says, so if the idea does not machriach as his savus, what's the additional step there? We didn't get to it yet.
What?
It doesn't. The idea doesn't actually bring about his savus. That's what we're saying. So there's an additional step. There is an additional act there, or something comes in between idea and hisavus. What's that?
Okay, so the question is not bria. The question is what went his house.
My question is, what is the step that goes beyond the idea?
His house. That's what El Machria say his house. Then ask him about El Machria say his house.
So what does?
You're asking about the symptom, the next
No, I don't know what it's. I'm asking what brings about his house. The idea doesn't.
Oh, what ultimately brings his house?
Yes. Is that it? We're not up to that?
First, you have to translate what his house means. Then we will see what is referring to when it says
I thought his house means that this statement that you make, existence, isn't an automatic thing. That's his house. His house is existence, bringing something to existence.
But it exists when it neighbors.
Hmm?
But it exists in Hashem's idea.
Okay.
So what is his house at this point? So as we spoke many times, his house means something having a presence independently of its source, of its creator. We look at this world and we all are meaning that Rebbe created the world. But nonetheless, when we look at the world, we see the world without its creator. Similar, that's why I get the notion. Similar to you picking this up without realizing, without taking heed of them, without giving credence to the fact that it actually belongs to somebody. When I see this, I don't see that it belongs. I'm largely I know it belongs to somebody. But this thing does not scream that it belongs to somebody. It does not prevent me from taking it in my hands. This means his house. It becomes an independent presence on the world scale, and there's not, and it severs its relationship to what brought it about. Which is his house.
Severed from our perspective.
Yeah.
Not-
Although that in the idea itself, it's a complete presence.
Is there a difference between existence and creation? I'm sorry, I'm trying to identify, because you say frequently.
One second, let me stop you right there. What's missing in trying to understand the words of the Maimar and what we've said? This is one thing we must always keep connected to. We're not learning philosophy at our own fly.
What's missing for me is understanding the word his house.
His house is a man, and what so what does Rebbe mean by his house? Exactly.
Okay.
What does Rebbe mean by his house? Hashem knows it, and it does not result in his house.
He knows his house, but it doesn't bring his house.
That's right. Doesn't result in his house. What does it mean? So we said, so far we said, that means house means it doesn't bring to an entity, a presence of an entity where you know it independent of its creation.
What's the contradiction though? You say, that's what his house means.